Welcome to App Talk with Upptic, where we dig into the nitty-gritty of how to grow apps and games. We speak with industry experts about specific strategies, tools, and tactics they use to find success, and we keep you up to date with emerging news and trends in the ever-changing games, marketing, and technology ecosystem. My name is Xander Agosta, Director of Marketing here at Upptic, and joining me today are my co-host,
Warren Woodward, co-founder of Upptic.
And our guest,
Ben Lee, Managing Director and co-founder of Blowfish Studios.
Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Thank you for having me on, Xander and Warren.
Yeah, really excited. I was just giving Ben a bunch of praise for how much I love their company and game before they came on. So I'll fanboy out a little bit on this one.
Yeah, we'll have a good section for that in the middle when we talk about what they're doing. Cool. So quick plug at the top. Upptic is hosting a webinar October 12th at 8:30 a.m. PST. As this will be about Web3 games growth, and as a reminder of our panel, we have Warren from Upptic, Jiho from co-founder of Axie Infinity, Yusuf, CTO of Animoca Brands, and Megan, COO of Arrivant, all big and important Web3 games people. So that should be a good one. Cool. Our first section is Industry Insights, where we do a deep dive on industry news, some big news in the crypto industry, which Warren will cover first.
Yeah, so we'll probably be releasing this episode on Friday or so of the week, but yeah, Thursday, the day we're recording, was the day that the Ethereum Merge finally happened, and there was lots of anxiety about this, lots of what if scenarios. Everything went pretty smoothly. So we'll post one article about it for a quick quote. The massive overhaul of Ethereum, known as the Merge, finally happened, moving the digital machinery at the core of the second largest cryptocurrency by market value to a vastly more energy efficient system after years of development and delay. The payoff is potentially gigantic. Ethereum should now consume 99.9 or so less energy. So yeah, I think this happened in the middle of the night for us in America. So a lot of us didn't watch it live, but waking up in the morning and seeing that it went smoothly was pretty exciting. And then Ethereum proceeded to immediately lose like 8% of its 8% of its value, as some people predicted might a kind of a sell the news situation. But yeah, I assume you guys were both kind of watching the situation as well. What are your thoughts on the merge?
Yeah, no, definitely watching it is super exciting. I mean, something like you mentioned that most community has been looking forward to for different reasons, especially blockchain gaming, because we want to be in the mass market, and the energy consumption of the Ethereum network was always it's always a bit of a talking point, and one of the reasons why games like Phantom Galaxies, our game, we're running on the Polygon network. So for us, we're running on kind of a carbon neutral, and people saying platform since the beginning. But now people would still kind of bring it back to the fact that we use Ethereum as a form of currency, and that was still extremely energy intensive. So this change is much welcomed. And yes, for us, it happened in the middle of the day. Ended up happening about 4:30 p.m. here in Australia time. Had the window up, the countdown clock. And yeah, funny enough, we actually launched a mint yesterday for our one of our game NFTs, and people were saying, "Are you sure you really want to do this?" And it's like, for one, we're on Polygon, right? And Polygon have kind of said, it's guaranteeing it's going to be fine and all this, but still there was a bit of concern there. So we were ready to, if anything really, really bad happened, to kind of pause the mint. But essentially, like you said, it ticked over, and it took a little while for everything to be validated. But again, because we were kind of one layer removed, it was seamless, and it was great. It's like a mini Y2K. I guess,
right?
Yeah,
everyone was like stressing out about Y2K.
A Y2K that only a handful of people care about.
More than a handful at this point.
More than a handful, yeah. It's a mini one. So, but it's it was. I think, it's exciting because it does. Obviously, it removes that major sticking point for the Ethereum EVM based network. So, and it was amazing. I think the group. Ethereum Group did an amazing job in preparing for it. Took a long time, but no one wanted it to go wrong, because that would be the worst.
Yeah,
that would be the worst. Right? If something happened that went badly, then that would be really bad for the community, really bad, marketing and promotion. So, for the popularity of it. So this is very good.
Yeah, sounds awesome. So, I'd say Ethereum and the nuance of the blockchain aren't my specialty, but my understanding is we expect this to. My understanding of the expectations is supposed to decrease supply of overall Ethereum and be effectively deflationary in the short term. Is that what your guys' understanding is as well?
Above a certain usage level, that should be the case, is my understanding.
Right.
So do we expect that we're going to hit the usage level from either of you guys? Do you have any opinions here? No opinions.
Not strongly. I mean, I think. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Ethereum out there, or ETH out there, and I say ETH, not ETH.
I mean,
I know there's a big kind of two groups there, but no, I mean, still people that are holding a lot of it, and it's that proof of stake model. So it's a bit deflationary in that more people will potentially stake to the nodes and validators. So I mean, that's cool. That's interesting. I think. The environment is ecosystem is so large, though, that I don't expect us to see any big kind of changes anytime soon.
For me, like, I've been so deep down the rabbit hole, I really just think of things more in ETH costs than dollar costs these days in my usage. But I do want to back up a little bit to Ben's comments about the environmental impact. I mean, we joked last week when this was upcoming that, like, now all the gaming press can stop saying that Web3 games are evil and killing the planet. I'm sure they'll completely move on and start supporting the sector now, right?
That's the hope. I mean, I don't know. The gaming sector has two concerns, right? Which is the climate cost, which, yes, that's gone, but then they still have, there's a small amount of people that are still pushing back against the whole commercial side of it and what it does to games. But that argument to me is, very similar to what they had to the free-to-play gaming movement that happened, whatever it was, like 10 years ago. That now makes up more than 60% of game revenues, I believe. So free-to-play games now make up, way
massive,
more than
the majority.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
I think, like you said, now we'll see more and more media outlets and gaming press covering it, I believe. So it's just good for the industry.
Okay, well, moving on to something that is denominated in dollars and not ETH. That transition.
That's good.
Here's an Animoca Brands article from the blog. Animoca Brands raises $110 million in funding. I'm not going to go through all the different companies that given funding, but there are a bunch of big ones. All right. Animoca Brands today announced that it had closed a strategic round of funding for 110 million USD from a small number of institutional investors, and valuing the company similar to its previous funding rounds. Yacht, the co-founder and executive chairman of Animoca Brands, said, "We are incredibly pleased to complete the special strategic round of fundraising comprising of several of the most respected institutional investors in the world, and we are honored by the continued support from existing investors. Animoca Brands will use the capital to continue to fund strategic investments, strategic acquisitions, investments, and product development, securing licenses for popular intellectual technology properties, and the advance of the open metaverse, including through its efforts to promote digital property rights for online users." So, congratulations to Animoca Brands. I mean, that's a nice, another big, nice check. I'd say that it's basically a perfect time to be a net buyer of Web3 assets, and Animoca is a pretty ideal buyer. They've dedicated themselves to open metaverse for years, and it's clear that there's a compounding effect that occurs as more and more people continue to invest in the space, and so they're there. And you guys are a great example of a company who is continuing to invest here. And I think there's this is the time to do it. So I don't know, Ben. What do you go ahead?
Yeah, for listener context, Blowfish Studios is part of the Animoca family, right, Ben? Maybe you can give a little context there and your perspective.
I didn't say at the start. So even though co-founded Blowfish Studios 12 years ago, but just over a year ago, we were acquired by Animoca Brands, and so we're a fully owned subsidiary of Animoca. But yeah, I think this latest raise, it's kind of really good news, like especially in this time where we're definitely we're in a bear market, so there's a lot of stuff going on, and just I think even though there's a bear market from an investment point of view, you would see that the raises haven't stopped. People are still fully kind of confident on the future of this space and willing to invest in it, like you're saying. So, and that goes for us, for Animoca and everything as well. So, when it's building, it's always really good to bring on, some existing investors, but there are some really big new investors too. So that was really strong for the company. Also, essentially the same share price that they came on at, so as the previous round. So that's always really cool. And just building up that war chest to really invest in more projects, do some more acquisitions as well, potentially, but then also just continue to build the projects that Animoca owns and builds as well. So Animoca's in that funny kind of situation where they are an investor, but they're also a developer through different subsidiaries and studios. So I think it puts them in a kind of that unique position compared to, say, just like a normal fund.
Well, it's interesting. I think from my perspective, I've seen something slightly different from Ben's comments, which is I did a lot of the teams that either I have been helping personally, just friends teams or teams that Upptic is working with, those fundraising in the last few months, we actually did see a big impact and kind of pull back. Like there was most directly tied to those. There's a lot of VCs that had a lot of funds in Luna. And we saw some deals where it's just like, hey, how we had X amount that we were committing? Yeah, that doesn't really exist anymore. So at least some like flesh wounds happen to the VC space, but it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I should qualify what I meant. Yeah, so not you're 100% right. Investments into projects and other companies. What I was referring to is that I guess the VC funds didn't stop raising money. So like they kept getting more people investing into their funds, which would now invest into other projects. So same thing with Animoca from that respect. So yeah, we'll qualify that. And what you said is 100% correct, that many projects have struggled in that department now.
And I really agree with what you said too, Xander. I think it's like it's a really optimal time to go shopping, I think, because there is a little less hype off the space, and the teams that are still really focused on building right now are in it for the long haul. So like valuations may have slightly cooled off. Ben might actually be closer to that, but just being out of the last year's bubble and Animoca being in a position of strength to make these moves, I think it's a really optimal time too. Yeah,
it's definitely been a coming down off valuation. So if you look on a project basis and token basis, then definitely been quite some large falls from that. But I think, like you said, it's kind of brought it back to a more appropriate level when you're evaluating projects and studios and by what they've built and who they are. And so very, very good time, I think, now to kind of get in there and find some top-notch companies and to really invest in their future.
It's like there's less of the like raising $30 million because someone said Web3 in the mirror 3 times. Like it's like it's real companies this time. Cool.
That's nice.
Let's keep on moving because we got a bit to cover, and I want to dig into the main topic. So,
let's do it.
I'll do this next one. Zynga. This is a VentureBeat article entitled "Zynga acquires mobile growth platform Storemaven." Here's a quote: "Zynga has acquired Storemaven, a mobile growth and app store optimization company. Terms of the deal were not disclosed. This is the first deal since Take-Two Interactive acquired Zynga for $12.7 billion earlier this year. The acquisition is also interesting as it reflects how Zynga is buying the market and ad tech companies, not just game studios. Zynga will combine Storemaven's technology into Zynga's game portfolio and Chartboost advertising platform. Storemaven has 53 employees, while Zynga has 2,900. So, I mean, when I look at this, it seems pretty clear that this is a play to expand Zynga's publishing capacities, and it seems similar to their play of how they acquire Chartboost, which is they basically use vendors, and if they are become one of the major if that vendor becomes a very critical component of their stack, they basically just in-house the vendor, and that's what they did with Chartboost. And that's what it seems like they're doing here.
Maybe worth quickly, just for those that might not be aware, just clarifying what Storemaven is and does, if you don't mind, Xander.
Sure.
It's Storemaven, for those not familiar with them, they're I'd say one of the leading ASO companies, App Store optimization, and they were one of the first larger companies to more focus on just the challenge and opportunity of increasing conversion of the App Store. So when we think about, what is the opportunity Zynga sees here, they obviously are, valuing that aspect of the growth marketing funnel enough that they feel like an acquisition makes sense.
And it makes sense in the context of paid user acquisition getting harder, so you have to sort of find whatever levers you can pull. And if App Store optimization is obviously the other one, they're very clear one in the top of funnel. So if you have now they have Chartboost for user acquisition, Storemaven for ASO, and then all their games for mid and down funnel metrics. So I mean, it makes sense from my perspective. Do either of you guys have thoughts here?
Yeah, no, I was going to mention that too. Especially with Apple's iOS app stores, like change of privacy and the data collection policy around that too. So I think it has become more difficult for people, and they can't rely so much on some of the ways they've done it before. As you mentioned, it has been for many years about data, who owns the data. So bringing in internally, there's been a lot of consolidation industry wide as well. So I think half of it is about, yes, that's what they want to do, and it makes sense. The other half is like, if we don't do this, someone else is going to buy them as well, and so a lot of that's going on.
Well, I'd say, like, I bet you the price. They didn't say the price, but I bet you they got a fair deal on this. And like, standalone ASO products are difficult, especially now, just because of the way that the ecosystem has fallen. And so, I think the point you made is a pretty important one, which is now they have access to other people's data as opposed to the other way around, which I think is a pretty advantageous place to be.
Yeah, and I don't want to make any assumptions about what the valuation may not have been, but it is a scary time. Like for context, the first tech product that Upptic built was an automated ASO tool, and one reason that we sort of like not deprioritized it, but kind of refocused our engineering on other growth marketing automation is, ASO as a platform, you're really optimizing, you're optimizing the store pages that are owned by Apple and Google. And so a simple policy change, or in the case of Apple, just them starting to offer native ASO, and they didn't before, really threatens the likelihood of your product. So I think anyone who's focused only on ASO, there's like ASO is super powerful. Like we're always kind of ringing the bell of like, how much revenue it equates to if you can increase the conversion of your storefront, say 20%. But if that's your sole or primary business, there's a lot of probably a lot of motivation to de-risk because you are at the mercy of these larger entities that can change one policy thing and invalidate some or all of your business.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, let's get back to one more Web3 related story that I thought was really interesting this week. This is Starbucks rolling out a huge Web3 initiative. So this is from their own press release. Starbucks brewing revolutionary Web3 experience for its Starbucks Rewards members. So a couple of quotes from the press release. So this is called Starbucks Odyssey. New Starbucks Odyssey experience will offer members the ability to earn and buy digital collectible stamps, NFTs, that will unlock access to new immersive coffee experiences. As one of the first companies to integrate NFTs with an industry-leading loyalty program at scale, Starbucks will create an accessible Web3 community that will enable new ways to engage with members and employees. And for context, there's currently a waiting list for this you can sign up on. It's not live quite yet. And they did clarify there's no crypto wallet or crypto knowledge required to participate. So to me, a couple of things kind of jump out about this. One is that this is more than just putting an NFT on their rewards program, because they're actually selling things too. So similar to like a lot of Web3 games, even you can attain power, quote unquote, by earning through play or just purchasing. And so it creates this really interesting and complex potential Starbucks economy where you could really leverage up your NFTs that you own and what that unlocks for you. And then maybe say, you stop drinking coffee, or you lose your job and like, I need some extra cash. You could essentially resell that reputation that you have within the Starbucks ecosystem. It's just kind of crazy. And yeah, I think the other really notable thing about this is like, if this rolls out and is adopted, this could be like the single biggest mass adoption initiative for Web3, just kind of quietly creeping in there. So I'd love, yeah, exactly. I'd love you guys' thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, for me, we've been around, doing apps and games for 12 years now, and mobile stuff, and I think people don't understand what Web3 really is about, right? It is really the next step from the internet and Web 2, and in its accessibility to not just consumers but developers and people that are using the internet, like to put their brand and their company. This is one thing I really love about NFTs, is the gamification aspect, and that's what you do, right? It's like, you don't need a game, like you said. It can just be, you can just gamify that kind of whole interaction with your company through NFTs. And I say this because it was about 7 years ago or more, like we as a company, Blowfish, we used to do work for hire, and we would get approached by many just normal corporates and brands about, all right, we want to gamify our mobile app. Like, how can we do that? By giving away little points here and doing that, and when you interact more with our brand and our app, we'll give you something more. And so there's been interest in that for decades, really, right? Not the technology itself and how it's rolled out has been different. You have your stamped cards before, your loyalty cards, but now then we moved into mobile apps. But now the problem that I think many of them saw back at that time is that the development resources and budget to really do those kind of things for yourself was immense. Like, for a large corporate, it would cost them millions and millions of dollars to design, build the app and roll it all out, and then try to get all the users to use it. Now with Web3, again, because it's about the whole, it's just, it's everywhere, and it's free to use and you can get on there. Yeah, something like Starbucks, this is not going to cost them anywhere near the amount of it would have cost to roll out a bespoke kind of gamified membership program before. And it's just, and you can also just, it's just a lot more seamless, a lot more interoperable, you know what I mean? And so you can do now, potentially, you can do like collaborations with other partners and other, Web3 projects a lot easier. So I think it's, like you said, it was always going to go this way, because companies and brands have been always interested in this aspect of brand building. And really now, I think the Web3 is just, people focus too much on the DeFi side initially, but now we're coming back to the technology, and people kept saying, oh, this technology, you can just use a server like you're in database. Like, yeah, you could, but you're missing the point of what the Ethereum network offers and Web3 offers, right? So, and I think now more and more people are really going to see that come to fruition.
Yeah, I think the most offensive part about this was just the way that it was written. It just sounded like a gobbledygook side of buzzwords. It was just like, no normal person who isn't like steeped in this is going to understand at all what you're talking about. But that being
said,
it's a
press release.
I know it's just gobbledygook. But hold on, I'm not done. So what I'd say is, I actually do not bet against Starbucks' reward program. I mean, they killed it on the reward program for like 20 years. Their app was like this incredibly well gamified app, and I expect them to continue to be able to leverage that. I mean, they were basically a bank where they were holding, I can't remember what it was. It was like hundreds of millions of dollars they were holding in credits of people in their app, like in the Starbucks app. They had like, I don't remember, some insane amount of money. I don't remember exactly what it was, but like a ridiculous amount of money. So I expect like this program, whatever it ends up being, is probably going to be a pretty effective one. You call it the other really important thing, which is a fiat on-ramp. And you can just use a credit card to buy it with a digital stamp, which is an NFT. And I think that's really smart in terms of introducing net new people to the Web3 ecosystem. And I think the thing that was kind of buried in the article, which I thought was interesting, is they're using Polygon as their technology stack, which I thought was super interesting.
Which, I mean, it's been surprising, like top tier brands using Polygon. Like Disney was another major one that we talked about a few weeks ago. And I never would have placed those bets of like, oh, what's going to be the blockchain used by the largest public corporations in 2022. So yeah, that is quite interesting.
Yeah, awesome. They're kicking some goals, that's for sure.
What was that?
They're kicking some good goals, Polygon, with their partners. Yeah, including Phantom Galaxies and Blowfish Studios.
Up there
Never
with
heard of it.
Disney. And
Actually, that's a perfect segue. So why don't we segue into our main segment, digging deep with Ben on Phantom Galaxies and the concept of developing AAA blockchain games.
yeah. So Ben, just to start off, will you tell us just a bit about your background, yourself, your background, Blowfish Studios, and what you guys are working on?
Yeah, I mean, bit of background. I'll go way back. I've been playing and actually I'm a software engineer background, but when I was young, when I was like 7 or 8, as soon as I could kind of read, I was lucky enough that my family had like a Commodore VIC-20, and I just went to the library and picked out some books, and I was actually like programming, basic ASCII games back when I was younger than 10, and so that was where I kind of started getting into the whole game development process. And as I grew up, I got into 3D graphics, and so I loved being able to do 3D graphics on the computer. It's create these amazing visuals with just a home computer, right? And that was really cool. Went through university, actually with my co-founder Aaron Grove. We were actually friends at uni because through games. We weren't in the same course or anything like that. We just knew each other through friends, and we were playing online. Homeworld. We loved playing Homeworld. The original Homeworld was a really cool game. But Marathon, kind of Bungie way before Destiny and stuff like that. So that was really cool. My first professional games job was in like 1998. I just was working for an indie game company here in Sydney. There weren't that many at all, so it was pretty cool. I was lucky to get into that, and that's just been my passion, I guess, ever for my whole life is game development, building and creating. It's that creating part. Programming was part of that, and being able to do my own 3D graphics was part of that as well. Definitely a better programmer than I am at doing it 3D. So as an artist, but yeah, and then kind of both myself and Aaron, we kind of went our separate ways, working at different companies, always in our kind of our core passion. And Aaron's was visual effects, so he was an artist, and so he focused on that. And I was into computer graphics programming. Essentially, was my passion for a while. So I was doing that through different places. And then essentially with the advent of the iPhone, kind of iPhone 3 came out, and Apple, the App Store, kind of started the trend for being able to self-publish, and then the tools were actually then coming into place, like Unity. So I was playing around in Unity 1.5. That's how long ago it was, right? On the very first like Apple MacBook Air, I think it was, and we just built some games, our own game at home with my wife, because she was into games as well, and I was in Sydney and Aaron was over in the US, and so I was in the US for a work trip, and essentially just went over, had a visit, and showed him what was kind of possible with the tools now, and the fact that we can self-publish onto on the iPhones, and so and Android, and kind of it grew from there. We did our first game, Cubism. The two of us over remotely. Released it on the App Store, went to like top 10 puzzle game in Japan and Germany, because they love puzzle games, and it made us like 25 grand US or something, which is not a lot of money, but it was
amazing at the time.
We built it ourselves, and we self-published it and released it. It got media articles, and Unity even did a kind of a write-up on us, so that was really cool. And then from that point we just said, all right, we'll give we'll trust it, have some faith in ourselves, and we quit our jobs, and you do the thing, you say, I'll give yourself a year. It might have been more than that at the end of the day, but our third game, Siegecraft, essentially it was a big kind of hit success for us there, and went to #1 iPad app, I think, in the US, which was it was amazing. So, and that kind of launched us on our trajectory for Blowfish Studios, and that was two of us. And so we're now we grew over the years, and it was about early 2019. We'd been building our own IP, and I always kind of wanted to do a sci-fi game, and we've done one before, but we were trying to think, what is that IP? And this is kind of again, like I said, my background, I've always been a massive fan of the new Transformers and Robotech, and that was my kind of motivation to build Phantom Galaxies. And so we started Phantom Galaxies back in 2019, and and started building it all up. So yeah, the game itself has been in development for over 3.5 years now. It's not like an overnight kind of build.
Just like most of the Web3 projects.
Yeah.
So I'd love to dig really deep into the why and how of Phantom Galaxies, but before we do that, can you just, for people who assume someone knows nothing about Phantom Galaxies, can you give us like the 60-second description of what it is?
That's tough.
It's great. It's like it's like being able to it's about the biggest badass mechs on the blockchain, right? So third person action shooter RPG, you pilot around, you're transforming mechas in a gameplay similar to like Destiny kind of third person shooter, but with the RPG aspect, but everything is on the blockchain. So your starfighters and your avatars are NFTs. You level them up, get gear and loot, which is always the fun stuff. I was being into MUDs, text-based MUDs from when they were a thing. Then got into EverQuest. I loved EverQuest. That was my thing, I guess. I did World of Warcraft and Eve and kind of all those things. But so Phantom Galaxies is kind of like that kind of online. It's not massively multiplayer because it's more like a Destiny style of the way where you go out there in squads. But yeah, so there's a really rich storyline, which people that have played we're in open alpha at the moment. So you can go in there and play, be able to see that it's a really rich world and storyline that we've built. The gameplay, people are loving it. People are just really engrossed in the game, and so that's been fantastic. And one of the things is, there is a distinct lack of really cool mecha games out there in traditional game space, as well as the of course blockchain game space. So right. And that was a big thing for us in that, and what we're trying to do here, bring together the different blockchain games into traditional game space, is that Phantom Galaxies essentially is a game that does not exist in the traditional game space either. And there are people that want this kind of game. So that's the kind of strength that we have there. Mech Warrior, I was big fan of those kind of games, but this is Phantom Galaxies is not Mech Warrior. It's very different. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I guess, where we've come from and why we've always been so keen to build this game, and still so excited by it, and why the community is so excited by it too. So
thank you, Ben. A couple of things. I mean, one, there's a few reasons that I grew to follow and really appreciate your. I came to know of Blowfish pretty late in the cycle, like through Phantom Galaxies. I only learned recently. You guys have been a studio for like 13, 14 years, right? And had this like immense portfolio of games. But you did one thing that I really love and never see in the Web3 space, which is like you let your community sample a robust gameplay experience before you ask them for money in any way. And that's something that you almost never see in the space. It's always like, buy this NFT for a game that we swear is definitely in development already. And then after the minute, it's like, cool, now we're going to go find an outsourced dev, and maybe in a year we'll have a game. So I really respected that. And the game is just like, I always say when people are skeptics of Web3, I'm just like, just go play the free demo of Phantom Galaxies and come back and talk to me after that. So just want to shout that out.
I mean, I guess that's coming from the traditional game space, because that's how you do it. You don't do it the other way.
Right.
Which I think is one of the things that is needed. And you sort of said something interesting in the last bit, which was that you're making a game that doesn't exist anywhere. And I think that's really important. When a lot of these people, when people are thinking about their game, they're saying, we're going to make the best Web3 game. It's like, you're sort of missing the point. Most people aren't going to care about whether or not it's a Web3 game. They want a really great gameplay experience. And that's what it sounds like you guys are focused on. So I kind of want to dig into that piece a little bit. Was Phantom Galaxies always a Web3 game, or was this something you were working on and then you were like, hey, we're going to sort of pivot this into a Web3 game over the time? How did that process work for you guys?
Yeah, no, so it didn't start as a Web3 game. So because we started back in 2019, and even though there were NFT games around and Web3 games around, I guess on the scale that we were aiming at, they weren't there. But I think as the as the blockchain gaming and that space has grown, like I said, it just became a lot more. Made a lot more sense, right? And that where we're talking about digital asset ownership and the accessibility to being able to, and what that means, interoperability. Back in the day, it was things were still too kind of expensive. It was you couldn't onboard into the space. Onboarding new users was very difficult. Because I went through it, right? I remember the very first time I tried to buy some ETH was like, man, it was so scary. So when there wasn't there to help you.
Money,
but these days it's it's a lot better, and it's amazing what it is now. Like you said, with Starbucks and that sort of thing, like now there's just invisible onboarding and on ramps too to getting into the space. So no, it wasn't, but it's also not a big shift design wise to be one, and that's where I think where you hear a lot of people say, oh well, why use the blockchain? Why not just use your own database and your own server? Because we've one of our previous games Gunscape, it was a fully online, has user generated content, real-time multiplayer, and that was all off chain, right? It was just running off our server. But like I was saying, I think people are missing really the benefits of what Web3 is bringing. So yes, doesn't change the design so much. There's definitely changes to economics and the game economy that you've got to take into account, and that really is that is our harder challenge over the actual design and what the game is. But otherwise, it is just another technology which is exciting. I think we're all excited by what running on chain does, and gives us that there's a lot of transparency, which is also a lot difficult to wrap your head around sometimes as well, and the immutability, like it's pretty freaky saying, oh, we're going to just deploy these smart contracts and you can't change them now. It's like, so you do
don't get it wrong.
It's like, oh.
So Ben, when you came to the team and presented that you guys were going to pivot to developing a Web3 game, I mean, I've worked in the game industry for a long time, and like there's a lot of, to say the least, like very strong opinions, and to be a little more blunt, like a lot of outright hatred that I've seen in sort of like more like old school or like experienced game developers towards building blockchain games, a lot of stigma. So what was the company reaction to this pivot, and was it pretty unified? Was there sort of like internal selling you had to do to get people excited about it? Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, I mean, part of it's kind of even broader than that, because part of the announcement was the acquisition by Animoca Brands as well, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of coincided with our full pivot that way. I mean, how I've run Blowfish, it's I think part of it comes from our history. Like I said, we've always been committed to making our own games and our own IP, but we have also been a work for hire studio as well. So we understand the commercials around game development. Where it's not a pure studio where it's just sweat equity and that whole thing, right? We know we need money to develop games, and then you need to make money to keep making games. But our ethos has always been around, no matter whether it's our own games or games for other people, we still love the creative development process, and we're always still there to make the best game possible for the audience. What I mean? You've always got these things you've got to kind of build within, but what we're trying to do is still make the best kind of artistic, creative, technically advanced games possible. Now, because of that, I think, we were always very, yes, you had to do kind of the talk around what the backlash was always about with blockchain mm-hmm. gaming. But again, we were lucky enough that the layer twos were there. So from that climate kind of perspective, it's just very clear, like we're not going to launch a game on Ethereum layer 1 at that time while it was like that. And so that's why we partnered with a layer 2. With the other part about the actual indie game kind of backlash, again, because we've always been very transparent about our driving, our motivation behind the development and creation of these games, and we just hold to that. As you've seen with our messaging around Phantom Galaxies, we are there to make the best game possible from a game point of view. Everything we've done around our NFT drops and mints, it's still been gamified NFTs. It's like, you've got to play the game. You've got to beat the episodes, and then you can go in there and claim. And so, yes, we have those NFTs there, and it's just another kind of, another type of monetization, but it's not about the money. It's not about DeFi. It's about the game. And like I said, that's why we actually gave it away, the demos away for free initially, because we want people to play it. We want people to see, no, we've built an amazing game, and we're going to continue doing that. And even now, with all doing a lot of talks and podcasts, it's like, that's still my messaging, right? We are here. We're game first. We're not here for anything else. And and I think that has been well received. And also, I know, over here in Australia, it's a pretty small industry, and I'm pretty much, I'm friends with many of the other studio founders, and so I think people understand, where we're coming from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We weren't like a VC startup that just came in with lots of money and started building something. It's like, no, we've been building games honestly and in integrity for many years, and that's what we'll continue to do.
So you talked about the pivot a bit to Web3, and then one of the things I kind of want to dig into is, it's obviously a difference. You talked about the economy as one potential difference that you'd have to make. What are some of the design advantages from making this a game on the blockchain, and what are some of the disadvantages that come along with that decision?
Yeah, I mean, trading, marketplaces, and all that sort of thing. Obviously a lot of brings a lot stuff we don't have to do. There's a lot of using like promotion and user base. There's people out there. If you support, NFTs, they're on open marketplaces, and you have users there, and so you've kind of got that bit of that on ramp there. One of the main core issues, though, that raises with our player base is the kind of the pay to win aspect. Because anything can essentially be bought, right? And so, you can't deny that. So we embrace it. Like, everything is be bought. So our games, though, they're always skill based. So someone can buy the best Starfighter and Star Avatar and come in and start playing. But you need to be able to know how to play the game. You need to be, you need to go through that process of skilling up in the gameplay to get better and better. And but otherwise, yeah, I mean, that's the way kind of Web3 NFTs and digital ownership works now. If I level up my characters to level 90 and I decide to sell it, and that's on me. But it's also, I think that's also the benefit, right? I deserve to be able to take all the hard hours I've put into it and pass that on. So yeah, I mean, that's the main thing. That's the main concern that's been brought up in regards to that. The other one is the game economy aspect, and we've seen game economies change a lot over the last couple of years with how blockchain games have fared. We will never ever play to earn game. Like, you can see that, right? That's we will never that. So that hasn't impacted us, but it's still the challenge there for us to balance the economy. Yeah, a lot more than what a kind of free-to-play game with fully virtual currencies can do or has to do. So that's there. But again, it opens up a lot of a different crowd and a different way of working with the items and the game itself. So I think it's exciting. It actually takes it back to a bit more like the old board games and tabletop games, in that you did have to buy things. You didn't just go buy a computer game and play it, right? So I was kind of, when I was younger, big into like Games Workshop and Warhammer 40K.
Me too.
I love buying the figurines and paying them up and everything. So I mean, that's just kind of where we are now, but we're in that virtual space. So I think that's a big deal to me. That feeling of ownership, being able to actually collect things. The people that say, you're just making fake rarity or scarcity. It's like, again, what have we been doing forever?
Before, yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like the pay to win, like the pay to win has always existed, right? Like, it's just you would pay directly to the company, and you power level your character, as opposed to the other way, to someone else in the ecosystem, which is sort of spreading the wealth around.
Your ROI was always guaranteed to be zero.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, so the one thing you talked about is you don't have to build marketplaces and stuff, so that obviously makes a lot of sense. Are there any other things that are really interesting the thing that jumps to mind is like interoperability. Are there any other things that are really interesting that that making it a Web3 game does that you guys are thinking of as like a design advantage?
Yeah, no. So the interoperability and partnerships and collabs is something that we're working on really, really hard in the background, and that's exciting to make some announcements soon. But like you said, so with the Starfighters, one example here is we have we call it the fusion process, where essentially you level up your mech, your Starfighter. And what we have is that ability to essentially, again, you've got a user's wallet. And so we can have a look at that. And then if they're holding a supported kind of NFT from another project, then essentially they can choose to say, use that and say, oh, look, I've got this part, I'm going to bring it into my level up. And then your actual Starfighter, your avatar, will take on an aspect from that project, and so you can start customizing it. And I think that is really cool, where you've got this kind of cross-brand collaboration. The obvious ones are also through the metaverse, having in-game events, and we're talking to a lot of different potential partners, how they love the Phantom. That makes sense in the Phantom Galaxies world with robots and mechas, and they're kind of they're not ready to do their own Web3 experience, but they're keen to have like a collaboration inside the game. And that's so we haven't locked in one exactly yet, but as soon as we do, that's going to be amazing. I mean, you see like people like Fortnite and Epic, they do it with within game events.
Yeah.
And for us, we'll be able to do that, but then the whole Web3 and digital assets, like people jump in and then you'll be able to own NFTs from that experience, and you have your limited time stuff. And I think it's just it just kind of emphasizes and kind of just it makes those things a lot more cooler. I don't know. I think it's going to be a lot more fun.
Well, I mean, this is a really good segue. You touched on the idea of partnerships and interoperability as sort of like a lever for growing the player base. I'd love to pivot this into just diving into that a little bit further. I love that model that you shared for Phantom Galaxies. There's a small game I'm building for fun with friends called the Scrapyard that has a similar idea. It's like a Twisted Metal, like car battling game. And you can use NFTs from different communities as drivers to grant different powers. So like, at CyberKong, well, you only get that power if you use the CyberKong as your driver. So there's just cool like Lego stuff you can do when you start playing with this. I'd love to unpack. So, talking about partnerships is one big potential growth lever within the Web3 ecosystem. Let's I want to dig into like growing within Web3 and then growing within mainstream players, because like that's kind of my bread and butter at Upptic, and I want to maybe just discuss those two things in isolation as well. I mean, maybe first of all, we view those as kind of two very different challenges. How do you think about them internally? The challenges of growing within that Web3 ecosystem and community versus when you really try to grow mass adoption with mainstream players?
Yeah, no, good question, because something that we're always I'm always thinking about, and analyzing like just messaging about the project and to who you're talking to, right? So you definitely, I think, because they're two different audiences, and so we do communicate the message to differently, but it's still the one product, and that's the design challenge, as you know. So you're designing the game that works both ways. I think coming from where we are, the Web3 space is, for us, it's less difficult, because we've built our community there, starting there, and it's a much smaller community, obviously, and so you have less competition. It's easier to kind of stand out in that point of view. I think, like you're saying, Blowfish and Phantom Galaxies, it's at a scale and a level of quality that's not seen so much in the blockchain space, which helps us in that respect too. So that's really cool. It also puts a bit of onus on us, because we're also with part of Animoca, we're trying to do everything as ready for any kind of regulatory changes that are going to come in. And so many of our aspects, we do require KYC. And so that's a challenge with the Web3 space, right? So most Web3 communities don't like having to KYC. So that's something that we know we need to figure out the onboarding process more, but how we can do that. So it won't be something that has to happen right up front, but at some part along the way, people will need to pass some KYC test to be able to essentially receive all the assets and things that the game is giving them. So that's like one of the challenges there in the Web3 space. Having that game first, kind of blew away any kind of FUD about not having a game and just asking for money, like you're saying. So that's how we've met that part. Now with the traditional, the non-Web3 community, when we announced the game back in September, we had great coverage by Math Chief, who's like a traditional game YouTube influencer, and his video had like a couple 100,000 views, right? But his caveat at the start was like, this is a blockchain game, so I withhold any kind of real thoughts on the game, but as a game, this is cool. You know what I mean? And so that's been, and that's why we really are, our messaging is about the game to the traditional game space, is that, and we'll keep doing it, with our PR group, they keep saying, no one's going to cover blockchain games. And so I know our expectation is zero, but we're not, we're here to change the perception of blockchain gaming. So we will keep trying, and we'll keep doing outreach, and our messaging there is different, right? It's always about, this is the game, this is the game you want to play, come get in there and play it. Now, so that's from like the kind of communication PR perspective. Then from the actual game itself and onboarding, yes, we're working with internal teams, we're working with other partners and trying to find the absolute, frictionless onboard, and not so much, it's more about onboarding than on-ramping. So it's being able to, how does someone get into the game from a traditional Web2 space? And then when they so choose to move and become a Web3 native, then we make that process as seamless as possible. Because in theory, people don't need to if they get into the game and they're really enjoying it, but they will want to. We know they will want to, because as soon as I'm in a game and I've built up my starfighter, my avatar, so a certain level, or any kind of level 2, it's like I feel ownership. I feel a bond with that character, as it's what games do. And now, if I can have that game and I can actually have it in my wallet, in a virtual wallet, and then I can take it and I can see people saying, "Oh, I want that," bidding on it, in marketplaces. It's a way to introduce the Web 2 to Web 3. But we need to make that as smooth as possible, because people, it's a scary process for first time around.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in that last section you spoke to. Like I was never a crypto fan. I'm still not necessarily like I don't really care about Bitcoins, whatever. Like I didn't care about the space until I had my first meaningful Web3 game experience that like let me do some stuff that I couldn't do in a traditional game. And then I was like, oh, I get it. Like the light bulb goes off, and then I was just like, all in, baby. Like I just didn't look back, I blink and I'm in 200 discords and building a game and like pivoting our company to focus on Web3. But you identified there's kind of like two distinct issues from bringing mainstream players on. One is just sort of from a technical standpoint, how can you bring them to the fun as seamlessly as possible? And Web3, to be blunt, is still horrible at that. Not speaking to Phantom Galaxies, but the space in general. The other is, how do you get them to want to take that step? And you mentioned, the challenges of doing PR right now. And yeah, that's a whole different thing. It's not even that they won't cover the games. It's that it's like, oh yeah, we're going to do a hit piece on this. Like one of our biggest partners is Axie. We're handling the growth marketing launch for Axie Origins. And it's just gut wrenching. Like they're such a wonderful team with such a, like, I think that release will hopefully like be an industry redefining release when it comes out on, Apple and Google platforms. But in the meantime, you have to suffer through like these hit pieces every week to, these people that are like passionate game developers that like care about the community, care about the game, but just the outright hatred and stigma. It's a tough hill to climb sometimes.
Right? And very angry Twitter comments.
Yeah, it definitely is. But I actually feel like that will change relatively soon, because there are, not just us, but seriously good games that are coming out.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance that some of the seriously not good games could still hurt the space, that are concentrating more on other aspects of it. And that will be the bit that we're kind of our challenge internally in Web3. But I think the platform holders, they're many of them are agnostic, right? They're actually, they're actually pro Web3, because it's true digital asset ownership is where a lot of the gaming platforms have been going anyway. It's about digital and owning games. So I think they're actually keen to get there. What it is though is they have to worry about the public stigma, and that's where again the merge yesterday or today for you guys. For me it was yesterday. It was ultra important, right? It was so important to get that done, and so that is really cool. And so the removal of that, and now just letting our games take their best step forward, bringing in players. Right now we're at the Tokyo Game Show, so that was a kind of a late call there, but we were at Gamescom, and now at Tokyo Game Show again. Transforming robots, a massive kind of cultural thing over there in Japan, and we're at the the YGG kind of Japan booth. But we've had traditional game publishers coming and playing the game, and for a while, seeing that the community is loving it, and we've just got the game there. So people aren't there playing the game to get an NFT or anything like that. It's just they're there to try out the game. And as we saw from the actual the public alpha, having this is our battle, but this is how we'll win it as well. We'll win it because we're going to see more and more games that are just blockchain games that are just great traditional games.
Right.
People will play them. So
that's a best note I can possibly think to end on. So I think that's it. We'll make great games and people will play them and they'll stop complaining about Web3. So awesome. That was really interesting. Thank you so much for doing that tour de force of your history as well as the Phantom Galaxies. I think we could do another half an hour on that, but we're unfortunately out of time. We'll pivot to our last section, which is App of the Week. I'll go to Warren first so you can see how we do it. Warren, do you have an app this week?
I do have an app this week, and it is a new one that went right to the top of the charts in the social media category in the App Store. It's called BRoll. Have either of you guys heard of BRoll?
No.
Not just a rapper in Cypress Hill. If anyone knows that reference. Okay. So what's BRoll real quick? So BRoll is an app that you use basically once a day for about 30 seconds. And you'll just get a prompt that says, hey, it's time to be real. And essentially you take two pictures at that time. One is a picture of whatever is directly in front of you. And the other is a picture of your face. And all of your friends are prompted to do it at the same time. And I think the point of it is it's kind of almost like an anti-social media app. It's basically like, don't Photoshop, don't make the perfect Instagram image. Don't carefully write out your tweet. It's just like, just live in the moment and then capture that moment that you're living in unfiltered at that time. So it's gone quite viral. It's pretty popular right now. It's refreshing and kind of novel. I don't know if I'll keep doing it, but I thought it was a cool, simple concept that was pretty unique. So that is my app this week. Xander, do you have an app this week? Oh, yeah.
That's a cool idea. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm just worried, are people going to start trying to I'm being the cynical part. It's like, are people going to start trying to live their life perfectly all the time?
It's just how about Ben? Ben, do you have an app this week?
So I'm not my life revolves around work and then play and my family. Work wise, I think Xander was saying, what an app. So one of the ones we use here lately has been getting big into is Figma, kind of like a UI.
Yeah, it just got bought for 20 billion.
Yeah, so that's the big. That's why I thought I'd bring it up. It's like, oh my god, Adobe buying it. I don't know. I hope. I don't know. Just don't want them to ruin it. But anyway,
it's great.
Figma,
Figma's
it's great. Adobe, don't ruin it. That's all I'm saying.
Awesome.
But then from a mobile app. People that know me, like kind of like casual, like going to do track days with cars, taking out there and getting to do some speedy driving in a safe environment. So it's like a app, Harry's lap timer, which I like. It lets you
nice.
Just record your own lap times and gets all the G forces and everything. So it's a bit geeky, but it's fun.
We had Robbie Young on a few months back, and I know he's a huge car guy too. Do you guys do fast car things together?
No, but now I think You know, we've been a bit busy, but I think we'll have to do get a car gathering together.
Awesome. Cool. Xander, you want to take us home? You have an app this week?
Yeah, so I'm gonna do something a little bit different because I'm so out of apps. So what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna do an app
Xander
that
has used all the
I've
apps.
used all the apps, but I'm gonna do something interesting. So I've been doing I'm gonna do Audible again, and here's why. I've done a lot of I've used Audible an immense amount this year and like gone through like 10 or 20 nonfiction books. And I want to give a recommendation for Audible, and here's 3 books that I highly recommend people check out. And these are nonfiction. They're sort of about this is specifically about sort of the US, but it's what got America to where it is today and what's going to happen next. And so they are in no particular order, in order of how I would recommend reading them. The Accidental Superpower, The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and Principles for Dealing with a Changing World Order. And so I think if you take those books in that order, you'll have a very, very interesting illustration of America's impact on the modern world and what's coming next. So that's my app of the week. Awesome. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate having you here. If someone wants to get a hold of you or learn more about Phantom Galaxies, where can they do that?
Well, everywhere. PhantomGalaxies.com is where our website is for the game. You got access to Discord and all the links there to go into our Discord. Discord is the best place. I jump on our Discord channel and chat to the community. They're quite well, not as often as I used to, but I still do it. I was there yesterday trying to settle some concerns about the merge and us doing a mint on the day of the merge, but it went fine. It was good. It was all good. So Discord, Twitter, hit me up on Twitter as well. It's kind of there. I'm not a big social media person, but I love doing things like this. I love talking to people, and yeah, I think Discord's probably going to be the main place.
Very good. Awesome. Well, it was really a pleasure having you. Cool, Warren. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thanks again for coming. Warren, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ben, thank you again for joining. Really a pleasure to get to actually dig in with the founder of one of again, not just to blow smoke up at Ben, but this is the game you should check out. If you're skeptical of Web3, check out Phantom Galaxies. And as always, the podcast was brought to you by the good folks at Upptic. So here at Upptic, we help both traditional and Web3 games grow through all stages through our technology platform and our growth services team. So we help Web3 games in particular grow through both that early stage we're trying to grow to the core Web3 community, and that later stage when you're trying to break through and move your product from just this relatively small group of Web3 users to the tens to hundreds of millions of users that play some of the traditional games that we service. So we love taking good games on that journey, and if you could use any help on that journey, please reach out to us. You can reach us at upptic.com. That's upptic.com.
Awesome. Talk soon.